Welcome to r/Prorevenge. Story 1. Lock my funds because of your mistake? Have your bank's social media ruined? For some reason, God knows why, I thought I'd trust a very small and local credit union with some of my money. When recently my card didn't work on the ATM, I asked for help inside the branch, and a clerk gave me a code to use that would deduct cash directly from my account. This is a feature the bank has. I wasn't having any special treatment. Fast forward a few days, it seems the bank's system flagged my account for review because of some accounting error being late to deduct my balance. I didn't go on overdraft or anything, it was just some minor mistake from their side. And still, for over a month, all my funds were locked. Whenever I called my bank support, I was given snarky responses, and sometimes even hinting that they didn't like my foreign sounding last name. When I spoke to my family back home to vent about the situation, a younger cousin came up with an idea. Use some Russian service that pays people a few Russian rubles, 1 ruble being 1 cent for reference, each time to post whatever you ask them on social media. This service worked like magic. The website even had the option to choose between American-looking profiles and some other locales. After the most well-spent $3 of my life and some AI prompts later, the credit union's social media were flooded with hundreds of complaints. I'm sure this got to the right ears because on the same day, the bank's call centre manager personally called me to say that they understand my frustration, and even if I don't want my account anymore, the bank is ready to initialise a transfer of my full balance plus $50 compensation to any other bank of my choosing. Problem solved. They probably also realised that there was no way to link this activity to me, and hence hinted at ending things on a positive note. Too bad I can't tell the Russian bots to remove their posts. That'll be someone else's problem now. A nice, clean, easy revenge for OP. They got what they wanted, and they didn't hurt anyone in the process, apart from that bank's reputation. Bravo. Next story. Story 2. Classmate got pranked by a fake letter after screwing us over. This was an old revenge from when I was a teenager in the 90s. There were only a few PC gamers around at the time, and without internet it was hard to get hold of new games. Me and a friend bought games from abroad via airmail because local stores didn't sell too many, but these weren't cheap. We'd trade them with each other and would copy the copy protection, so this made it semi-affordable for us. A new kid joined our class however, and his uncle had tons and tons of games we didn't have. We offered to trade games with him and gave him our original copies for him to copy, and in return we got corrupted floppies, missing copy protection, etc. And after a few months of this, we received not a single working game, while he had received all of our games, The Settlers, Doom 2, Monkey Island games, etc. And some he returned in less than nice condition. We had enough and we wanted to get revenge, but we didn't know how. Now, the 90s were known for the many AIDS campaigns after Freddie Mercury died of AIDS in 91. I was a huge fan of Queen, and this new friend would often mock me for liking a gay singer. He came from a very conservative family and his mother was quite Catholic, and this is what gave us an idea when we had to attend an AIDS event organised by a certain foundation with our class. At the end we were given flyers about AIDS, homosexuality, etc. and free condoms with the logo of the AIDS Foundation were up for grabs. We each grabbed a few for reasons you'll soon reach below. Me and my friend were one of the very few with a computer and inkjet printer at home, so we got the idea to screw him over. We created a fake letter addressed to our friend, pretending we were the AIDS Foundation, copying the logo and everything to make it look as authentic as possible. It went something like this. Dear friend, thank you for your letter. We understand it's difficult being open about being homosexual, and you may have many questions after the event you attended with your class. Please find enclosed a flyer which should answer many of your questions, as well as some condoms. Please practice safe sex at all times. We enclosed all the flyers that we got in the event, as well as the condoms, and mailed it to Mr. Friend's last name, to guarantee that his father would open it first. We had no idea the storm that this would create. We knew that he was homophobic and this would be a great revenge, but apparently his mother had been in tears, screaming, his father angry, and he was grounded for weeks, with his parents convinced he was gay. In the end, he figured that we had something to do with it, because we'd been carefully fishing to see if our prank had succeeded. At first, he thought the letter was authentic and we'd contacted the foundation in his name. When we finally confessed we'd faked it all, we had a nice trip to the principal to explain why we had done this, with his parents present. It's still the best revenge I ever took in my life, even though it was 30 years ago. This revenge is absolutely evil. Getting the parents involved to that degree, knowing how homophobic they are, is absolutely devious. Love it. He does deserve it though, because stealing games is a crime that should be punishable by death. Story 3. Cheat on your wife with mine? I will burn your life to the ground. Way back in the early 2000s, I began to suspect that my wife was up to something. Our 2 kids were about 4 and 6, still young, but not so young that they couldn't tell you something about what happened in their day. They started talking a lot about staying with my wife's parents during the day, which wasn't really that strange in of itself. But since they lived about 90 minutes away, doing so 2 or 3 times a week seemed a bit much. When I asked her about it, she denied it, but was never a good liar. So I started tracking the mileage on her car, and sure enough, she was driving an extra 400 miles or so a week. I knew something was going on. One day, I sat down at the computer, and she'd left a sticky note with her AOL password on it. I couldn't resist and logged in to read her emails, and saw a few email exchanges between her and her college best friend, where they discussed how my wife was often screwing one of her ex-boyfriends from high school. No mention of details about him, other than my wife also talking smack about his wife and making fun about how she'd gotten fat after having kids. Anyway, I printed out these email exchanges and stashed them. I still needed to know the details, so I called a friend who was a cop, and he suggested I call a guy that he knew had left the force and become a PI. Ron was great. I paid his retainer and gave him the emails and what little I knew about my wife's activities, and he figured out exactly what she was doing. His report detailed, with photos, times, dates, locations, all about how she would take the kids to her parents, then go meet this guy for lunch, and then they go to a dumpy motel for a few hours. After which, she'd pick up the kids and return home. At this point, I hired a divorce lawyer. My parents cheated on each other, and the fallout absolutely messed mine and my siblings' childhood up. It was something that was totally unacceptable. I also asked Ron to find out what he could about this guy. Ron came through, and I learned his name was Bob. He was married and he had 3 kids. I also found out that he worked as a VP of sales for his father-in-law's business. At this point, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I also asked Ron for a couple more copies of his report, and one more thing I wanted him to do for me. On the same day I had my wife served with the divorce papers at her work, I had Ron meet this guy's wife and show her everything he found out. She seemed nice, and I figured that she deserved to know what her dear hubby was up to. What she did with that information was up to her. While the information about my wife's infidelity didn't really matter in my divorce proceedings, Bob's wife did real number on him. According to the publicly available court documents from the divorce and other related proceedings, she cleaned out their joint account, took the kids and left. As soon as her dad found out what he'd done, Bob was fired, and since their parents actually owned the house where Bob and his wife lived, he also got evicted. Their divorce was ugly. Lots of fighting in and out of court. I guess Bob went to the house and started arguing with his wife, and it escalated to the point where her brother stepped in and Bob gets his nose broken. There were restraining orders and a few more incidents with police reports, criminal charges, jail time, and so on. I can't find Bob on the internet anywhere these days. Last I heard, he'd left the state and his ex-wife did okay. She went to work at her dad's company and took over after he retired. As for me, my ex and I got along well enough. I didn't engage with her on anything that wasn't related to the kids, and now that they're both adults, I don't talk to her at all anymore. I don't hate her or anything, but I only care in the context that she's my kid's mum, and that's important to them. Nothing beyond that. This is less revenge and more just passing along the information. The wife of Bob deserved to know what he was doing, and then she could make her own decision based on that. It just so happened to work out that Bob was absolutely screwed in the process, but he deserved it. It's a shame that OP's wife didn't get the same treatment, but we can't win them all. Story 4. Tricking my slacker co-worker into sabotaging himself. I work in an office with a guy I'll call Seth. Seth is that co-worker that everyone knows, lazy, always passing his work on to someone else, and somehow always getting away with it. He'll sit around on his phone or go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. He's the kind of guy that will show up late, make some lame excuse about traffic, and then disappear for lunch for 2 hours. For the past 6 months, Seth's favourite target was me. He'll send me emails asking if I can help out with a project, but what he really means is, do all the work while I take the credit. I complained to my boss a couple of times, but somehow Seth always managed to weasel his way out of trouble. The final straw came when he passed off a major report that was due to a client in 2 days, dumping on me the last minute. One day, I casually asked him if he was good with Excel, and he admitted he didn't know much about it. Perfect. The next time Seth tried to dump a bunch of spreadsheets on me to organise for his next report, I agreed. But this time, I embedded a series of hidden formulas into the documents. These formulas didn't do anything important, just enough to mess with the numbers if someone didn't know how to check for hidden cells. It took me a little time, but I was careful not to make it look too obvious. The kicker? Every time Seth tried to copy and paste the data into his report, it would scramble everything just enough to be completely useless. On the day the report was due, Seth slacked off like usual, assuming I had handled it like always. When the client called, furious because the report was filled with nonsense numbers, Seth panicked. He rushed to fix it, but every time he tried to fix one part of the report, something else would break. He came to me, frantic, and asked for help. I acted confused and said, Oh no, I don't know what happened. Maybe it's a glitch. I even gave him some vague advice and watched as he spent the entire day trying to salvage his mess. Our boss found out, and for once, Seth couldn't talk his way out of it. He got lambasted for screwing up such an important project and was put on temporary leave without pay. I guess he'll be doing his own work from now on. Everyone knows someone like Seth. Everyone's worked with someone like Seth, whether that's at school or at your actual job. Those guys get away with absolutely everything, and it's so cathartic to see this one getting his just desserts. Anyway, that's Prorevenge. All finished for now. If you like the stories in today's episode, then please drop a comment and a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.